I find hope in the fact that people want the world to be a good place.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone walks around thinking, I want to make the world worse. And I see hope in that.
Hello, Oak Grove. My name is Hanna Cain. I am the youth ministry assistant here, and I am here with you wonderful Miss Ashley DeLange, who is a senior at Lakeside High School and is joining us for this episode of our Lenten podcast series for this Lenten season, which is centering youth voices and thinking about hope. And so Lent is a 40-day period of preparation for the coming of Easter, and it begins on Ash Wednesday and ends with Easter. And it's often a time that's spent kind of journeying and reflection and being in the wilderness as Jesus was. And so I think that's a really wonderful time for us to listen to others, and especially communities that are different from us, like our wonderful youth. So today's episode, we are focusing on inclusivity and how intentionality and inclusion in spaces and with people has provided hope for us and for the youth. So Ashley, would you mind sharing with us first just how you got to Oak Grove and what you do here?
So I have been attending Oak Grove Church since the first grade. And our family became members in second grade, and then I became a confirmed member in ninth grade. And I've been doing youth group since sixth grade. I love it so much. And then particularly kind of with the inclusivity stuff, when summer after my sophomore year, I learned about reconciling ministries.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that it was something that it would be a good thing for our youth group to join into. So I went to CJ and I was like, hey, we should do this. And it's kind of been history since then.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say since then, we've definitely had some growth in that area. Ashley's on our youth leadership team. And this past fall, we did kind of a vision day of what our values as a youth group are. And one of those values that the group of 25 students decided was inclusivity, which was really encouraging for me, seeing kind of the intentionality behind these kids' commitment to want to make sure that Oak Grove Youth is a safe space every time a kid walks in the door. So I'm curious, why was this topic important to you when you heard about just inclusivity in general or reconciling ministries, or like what made that go spark?
I think for me, I feel that no one should ever feel barred from the church because of the way that God made them, whether that's their race, their gender, their sexuality, or their abilities. I think everyone should be able to call a church their home and should never feel barred from that.
Absolutely.
And I felt that at the church, especially at that time, there were some pretty large bars up. And so I wanted to help make it a place where everyone felt at home.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel similarly and have a similar story to that. So I'm glad to know that people younger than me are also getting involved in that work. What do you think the youth are doing in the inclusivity sphere of church?
I mean, I think that the youth are helping really lead the inclusivity, especially at Oak Grove. I mean, we see that with our wider circle, which is a new thing that we have launched this year. It's like after youth group. It is particularly focusing in on the inclusivity path, and it's a small group, but I think that it's growing and it's really helping have those tough conversations.
Yeah.
That not everyone always wants to have, but they're the important ones to have.
And it's creating a space. I've realized that a lot of the kids who are coming here are just curious, and it's a space to ask questions about, hey, I heard this thing one time and I'm just not quite sure what that means. What does this mean for other people or people in church? So that's really cool. And I also hear that you've done some work with Angel Buddies, or what is now called Sunday School Buddies. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Sunday School Buddies is a program where someone is paired up with one of the youth in our church who has different abilities. and needs a little extra support and a little extra love and care to help Sunday school be an approachable place for them. And so I've done that with a few different people in our church, and I think it's like my favorite way to worship. It helps helps you find that connection.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you said that's my favorite way to worship, because for me, worship is just being aware of the presence of God with us, and seeing that in another individual is a really beautiful thing. So thinking about inclusivity, where for you is like the Christian call for that? Like, can you look for, or do you look at a scripture and you're like, yes, this is why we are called to be inclusive?
I mean, I think for me, it's as simple as Jesus says to love one another. And even when he talks about the fruits of the Bible, he says the greatest of these is love. And so I think you have to find that love.
Yeah.
And you have to love one another exactly as they are. Because no one's different depending on just who they love or who they were born as. And you have to address that, and you have to love each other because of that.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Recently in Sunday school, we had a lesson on love for Valentine's Day, and we talked about that passage of the greatest of these is love, and looking at the gift of love with Paul. And what came up in that conversation with the youth was that there are a lot of love can be hard sometimes, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it, and we shouldn't engage in it, and we shouldn't wrestle with what does it mean to love this person even when we disagree. So I think that's a big that's a big Christian call, and it's something that's difficult, but I do think it's something we're all called to do. So what is your personal experience of inclusivity? Just in the largest of terms, when you think of inclusivity, what comes to mind for your personal life?
I mean, for me specifically, I have battled people like discriminating against me, against my sexuality or against my gender. And that's really hard. And I don't want anyone else to have to fight that or face that. And so that's why I've been so called into the inclusivity mission, is to make it a place where everyone can make the world a place where everyone just feels loved and welcome.
Yeah.
Because as simple as just love.
Yeah. I'll just say that I'm proud of you for wanting to do that for you and for other people. And I pray that through your work and through everyone else's work who's committed to this, that this becomes more of a reality. And it's something that we do see the fruits of it in the world as we live on and find hope in that. So about a year and a half ago, right before I got here, actually, I know that Oak Grove had a vision process of thinking about, what do we want to work towards as a congregation in the next 5 years as a community. And part of that was lots of conversations with a lot of people in the church, which included y'all and youth. And from what I hear, there was a lot of push through y'all for the want for inclusivity in that statement. And it's in there. It's at the very beginning. And so I'm curious, how does that make you feel that your church has listened to you and your friends for what the church can be in the near future?
It makes me really excited.
Yeah.
It's cool to see things that you want to change. And that's why I think it's so important for inclusivity and for people to speak their mind. Like if you see something that you want changed, tell people, find the action, because it will happen. And it's really cool to see that.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to courage, just in the push for inclusivity. I think speaking from personal experience, sometimes it's hard to want to make the push for inclusivity because it's scary. And so using our voice and just being confident in who we are and what we want, and communicating that to other people, there may be some rockiness to that, but also the fruit that comes from that and wanting to see that you are indeed heard, I think is a really beautiful thing. So now that it's a part of our culture here, what are some practical applications that you envision for inclusivity to be made even more known here at Oak Grove?
I mean, I'm seeing that the wider circle that we're forming, that should get wider and wider every single day.
Yeah.
I'm I'm loving seeing that more people are getting involved. And I even had a bunch of the adults in the church come to talk to me about this now, which I think is really exciting. And it's leading to those conversations that we want to have had.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think inclusivity isn't just one type of inclusivity, right? So whatever is exciting for you, there's a way to make that sphere of your world more inclusive. If you want to work with youth, then awesome. That's an intergenerational inclusive practice, which is awesome. And I think we're trying to even do that with our programming in the summer and fall. We're doing a spelling bee, and we had trivia night and those sort of things. Those are inclusive practices. All right, Ashley. So when you think about inclusivity in the wider scope of Oak Grove, what are some practical ways that people can get involved in that?
Well, I think one way that a bunch of people can get involved is Focus, which for those of y'all who don't know, Focus is a community that comes to Oak Grove. They are involved all over Georgia and to help people with different abilities. And I particularly help them with their Camp Hollywood over the summer, where they come to Oak Grove and you get to work with these kids and these young adults one-on-one to help them have a really awesome week of camp.
Yeah.
It helps you have perspective, and it helps you become more involved in the church and more involved with people that are different than you, which I think is really important. And it helps you become, I think, a more empathetical person.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just helps you see more of what the kingdom of God holds, right? Like everyone is a part of God's kingdom. And so expanding our view to see people that are different from us allows us to be more involved in the kingdom, which is amazing. Some other ways that you can get involved here at Oak Grove, if you're interested in joining a Sunday school class, I know Christian Fellowship is a group that meets on Sunday mornings that is committed to being an inclusive community. They're part of the Reconciling Ministries communities. So that's really wonderful and would love more voices and faces with them. Another way to get involved, of course, is with the youth. You are more than welcome to reach out to myself or to CJ, and we can get you connected in whatever way would excite you with the youth group. And also just in worship, when you're here on Sunday mornings, the easiest way to be inclusive to someone is to, if you don't know who they are, say, "Hi, my name is so-and-so. What is your name? I'm so glad to see you here." And if they're sitting alone, maybe you offer to sit with them. It's little things like that that make this world a better place. And it's truly not too difficult for us to all have a piece in this work. So, inclusivity and bringing it back to hope and Lent. I see a lot of hope in this world, which right now I think we all know is it's a little heavy. And things are divisive and people are having a lot of feelings, and we have to find places for hope right now. And so when I think about hope and inclusivity and the youth, I see my hope in these guys, in the youth. They, every Sunday when I come to work, I work a long day on Sunday, and suddenly all the chaos of the world is silenced, and I'm focused with these guys. On Sunday mornings right now, we are doing a deliberative dialogue series in Sunday school, which really is just a pedagogy that allows youth voices to be centered. And we talk about a variety of different subjects, but through all of it, the imagination of these youth and the vision of what they have for the world and for the church is hopeful. Yeah. Some of it's fun. Our youth group are currently trying to figure out if we're going to have church chickens and have figured out what names they want to have for those. But overall, they're thinking about how can this church, how can the church, and how can this world be a better place for everyone, and what is the Christian responsibility in that? So Ashley, tell me where you're seeing hope right now.
I'm seeing hope in the fact that everyone has a place where they belong. And I think for me, I find hope in the fact that people want the world to be a good place.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone walks around thinking, I want to make the world worse. And I see hope in that. Yeah. And I always say, leave it better than you found it, whether that be the church or the world or whatever you're involved in. If you just leave it better than you found it, you'll make a good positive difference. And I see a lot of hope in that. Yeah, absolutely. And I think inclusivity falls right into that as well, as you make a positive difference when you think about other people. It's as simple as that. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for coming and talking with us and helping us reflect during this time of Lent. It's been a real pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you for having me. This has been fun. Absolutely. As we go into the rest of Holy Week, this is coming out on April Fool's Day, so happy April Fools. And we will have a Monday, Thursday service here, a Good Friday service, and then on Easter, we have the sunrise service, 8:30, 10:45, and 11. So come to as many as you want, and we are excited to see y'all when you're here. Bye.